And action.
We're live.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you still got to do the intro?
Well, you said you were going to kick it off.
I know, but you always do the intro.
What up, people? This is Corey and MJ for the Better Together podcast. Unfortunately, we are missing our lovely Silver Fox counterpart, Cassidy O'Sullivan, today.
It wasn't if, it was when, man. It wasn't if, it was when.
Somebody's going to drop off. So today you're just stuck with me and MJ. So you have just two really large egos talking about their egos probably for the next 20 minutes. But
you're welcome, people. You're welcome.
Take it for what it's worth. You'll probably be better after this anyway. Today we're going to be discussing injury. We're going to kind of go free flow format because we don't have Cassidy. So there's no three thoughts. There's no two miss. There's no one action or go. There probably is going to be all those things anyway.
I bet we do address thoughts, myths, actions, and goes in there. I bet we do.
Just not in that format.
Yeah, it's good.
But our goal today would be to get you guys to know how you can safely and appropriately move in the gym, what to do if you are hurt, how to set yourself up for the best success so you don't get hurt, and all those good things in between. I think those would be my three things or things we would discuss.
For sure.
So you're on the Better Together podcast, and that's what you're listening to, and we're talking injury today.
That's it. I think where we kick it off, Home Skillet, is this topic, especially in our space, in our gym. We're technically considered the micro gym space, right? We specialize in GPP group programming along with some IPD stuff, individualized program design on a one-on-one level or small groups. And in our space, in particular, Corey, we have been accused, rightfully or wrongfully so, of being a higher there being a higher probability of injury that occurs in our space, and depending on how you look at that, there can be some truth to that. There cannot be some truth to that. In either way, in either capacity, what we're going to discuss, like you said, is number one. And where we'll kick it off is regardless of the space, how do you stay injury free? Like how do you approach your workouts, your programming, your workout selection, your movements, your movement patterns? Like there's a lot that goes into it. So the cool thing, as all of our members know that may be tuning in, is when you walk into our space, and whether you go in a one-on-one setting or group format, there's always a coach there. So we understand that, as you move more or there's more working parts, i.e. moving in 3D and 3 planes of motion, that there could be more of an inherent risk of injury, just from the nature of moving more and doing more things and putting your position in more positions that may have more external instability. But we have a coach all the time to help tell people, show people, demo, and then correct along the way. But in our space or another space, one thing that we prioritize and train on as a team to make sure that we keep all members injury free is what we call an MCI charter. And it's kind of a pyramid for the people at home sitting like this. The M's on the bottom, the C's on the top or middle, and then the I's on the top. And if you can understand and appreciate what the MCI charter does and how it should be used, it just increases the probability of you becoming injured. Decreases the risk. I was going to say increases the probability a lot, but anyways, that's not. It's
right, a good thing. Okay. It's good. MCI is a good
thing.
If right? You so follow it.
So here's the deal. We teach it. We teach it to our coaches and our coaching staff. And really what it is, it's a priority system to progress through your workout and your programming. And the very foundation of that program, the M, is mechanics. So mechanics speaks to the movement itself and everything from your setup, which is stance, grip, and position, to when you go into your tunnel of movement, whatever the movement is to maintain proper mechanics in doing that. Well, you go, well, that makes sense, MJ, no shit. Like, duh. But here's my thing. How many people, when they see an exercise on a program they printed off, or they see an exercise on a board inside of our gym, really know what the proper mechanics are, the movement patterns from setup, execution to points of performance, all the way through? And the answer is not a whole lot know it all the way through.
Right.
But
And even the ones that do they have the self-awareness to know that they're doing it correctly the entire time, right? You might know, like, hey, I should squat. How to squat appropriately would be my knees track over my toes and they don't cave in. I get my hip crease below my knee without losing my spine and have maintained a neutral spine. But how many of them have the body awareness to know, like, oh, I'm actually doing that?
Yep. So with the topic being how to stay injury free topic, we're saying number one, you have to prioritize mechanics with whatever workout you're doing, wherever you're doing it. That's number one. Once I prioritize the mechanics, so we'll just use a squat, for example, because if I had $1 for every time a member has said squats hurt me, or my doctor said I should, or what, like all these things around squats, like you fucking squat every day. You get up and down off of a chair, you're squatting. You
gotta take a poop. Guess what?
You take a shit, you're squatting. Okay. You might want to learn how to do it properly so you don't hurt yourself, or worse, be injured. Okay.
Correct.
So with the squat, for example, the first thing I want to do is I want to understand the proper mechanics of a squat. Where's my setup? Where's my stance? When I enter that tunnel of movement, what's it look like? Like you said, maintaining neutral spine, tracking knees over toes. All of these things matter, because if you don't, and you go to the second, or you go past the second variable of consistency, which is the C in MCI, up to intensity, which is how you make it harder through either load or external instability. When you compound shitty mechanics, jumping load on it, you got a problem. So it's like, did the squats hurt you? Or did you not prioritizing mechanics and squatting with appropriate loads hurt you? Right.
Yes.
So,
and the beautiful part about mechanics too, that I think, like, obviously we want people to move correctly, but the beautiful part about mechanics is if somebody's mechanically moving wrong and you get them to do the exercise mechanically correctly, the stimulus there as a member, what you're experiencing in that movement goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Like, I can load 315 on a bar and do a knee bend back squat and go 2 inches from the bar height down, and that does nothing for me. I can put a 45-pound bar on my back and squat all the way to the bottom and hold it there with good mechanics and tight core, and that's just going to drive the stimulus way up. So not only is it keeping you safe, mechanics, but mechanics is also increasing the stimulus. It's getting you fitter. The more correct you do the movement, the fitter you're actually getting.
And you could even say for the layman on the call, the more correctly you do the exercise, the harder it is.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And as you work up the MCI charter, that I variable at the top, which is intensity, and that's what Corey's saying is, hey, the greater stimulus you have, you're going to have an equitable linear relationship with intensity. And here's the deal. When it comes to working out, this is what we always balance as exercises. This is what I balance when I work out, when Corey exercises, when he works out, and all of us is balancing the variable of intensity with mirroring mechanics, because the reality is intensity is the number one variable when it comes to attaining fitness results. Again, I'll say that again. Intensity is the number one variable inside of a bout of exercise. So I'm working out for this hour. What's the one thing that I can control to get the most impact during this workout? It's intensity. Now, let me back up a little bit and say, hey, in an overall macro approach to my entire program for fitness, we would prioritize consistency. So whatever you're doing on a more consistent basis would supersede the intensity. But we're talking about today, when I go in and work out, how do I stay injury free? And if I'm going to stay injury free and follow the MCI charter, how do I also get the most bang for my buck and the results? And so going back to that air squat, once I can establish that I can squat to a standard, okay? And I understand what that standard is. If I have a knee replacement and I only have X degrees of knee flexion above 90, and that's as far as I can go with my depth, then that's your standard. That's good. But the squat, for example, most people could be very well served to do some therapy in that space, some squat therapy, if you will. And what we mean by that is to work on, to drill, to practice movement patterns and put your body in positions and unaccustomed stimulus to get you to squat to full depth and full end ranges and to squat all the way up. And assuming that you can do that for one repetition. All right. This is me teaching the MCI charter in real life for somebody that's watching this going, what do I do with this shit?
Right. So mechanics are good now.
Mechanics are good. You identify a standard and I squat to that standard. Now what I'm going to ask myself is I'm going to go, okay, without the intensity variable. So without a barbell on my back in a front rack or overhead or any external instability or any other forms of intensity other than repetition, okay, I'm going to see if I can do this consistently. So I can squat once, which means I'm mechanically sound. Can I squat 10 times, 15 times, 20 times with my body weight and still maintain all my points of performance, not go into a whirlwind of faults, as we call it in the coaching world, or things that are wrong? And can I minimize that down to where the value of continuing to work out and add intensity supersedes the cost of if I don't do this correctly and I get hurt or injured, right? So the key is this, guys, is once you identify that standard and you can do it over time through repetition, then and only then do I work on that top variable of intensity. And so here's the thing, like we opened and we said our space, the micro gym space or functional training space, has been, accused of being a space that hurts people, that there's rampant injury. And, what I would submit to anybody listening to this is that, it's one of those things where like, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Like if I have a gun here and I put it down and it just sits there, it's nothing's going to happen. But if I put that loaded gun in the wrong hands of the wrong person at the wrong time, some bad things can happen. Exercise and injury is very similar. So if you're in a micro gym space like ours or anywhere else, and there's no, the loaded gun, so to speak, is like a poor coach, right? Is a facility that doesn't provide the tools you need to keep the MCI charter in check, then fuck yeah, there's going to be a greater increase of getting hurt and a greater increase of injury, especially, guys, if you jump from skipping the mechanics part and straight to intensity, and you go try these complex movements with heavy loads that have all these working parts. No, thank you. You got to build a capacity. You got to earn, we talk about it all the time, you got to earn the right for the PR. Like you got to earn the victory, and the way you earn it is with the boring skill and drill shit. So I'll wrap it up with this, Corey, and then get your thought on MCI altogether is, and it ties into your thought, is the irony of it all, right? The paradox of the MCI charter is that if you follow it from the ground up, the intensity goes through the freaking roof, like you were saying, but it's so hard to get people to understand that, appreciate. They just want to skip labor and have the baby.
For sure. Yeah. And I think I would even jump on your loaded gun analogy a little further. If you are in a facility where there's not a ton of coaching, or you're mainly directing your own workouts, right? Or maybe you're coming to open gym or whatever on a day. The second biggest factor to that is your ego, which we talk a ton about, right? So it's like, oh, I'm working out with my homie right now and he's squatting 225, and I probably shouldn't be squatting 225, but he's squatting 225, so I'm going to squat 225. And then you just throw everything out the window because you have ego issue. So you're much better served of just lowering the weight and getting the correct stimulus out of it. The other thing I would say too about the MCI charter is it's really a loop, right? And I think a lot of people are like, boom, I got mechanics down. I can do it consistently. Now I just control the intensity variable and we're good to go. It's really a loop. It's at those intensities. I might be at an intensity where mechanically I can perform it and consistently I can perform it for 3 reps, but maybe I can't consistently perform it for 5 reps or my mechanics start to break down then. So it's kind of just a loop. You got to continually reevaluate like, hey, at this load, I still have good mechanics. I can do it consistently for these many reps. If I go higher than that, now my mechanics just break down all the other. I can't do it consistently at all. Or maybe if I go higher than that, I just need to lower the amount of times I'm doing it so I can consistently do it well. So I think it's a loop that you constantly have to reevaluate. Mechanically speaking, I think this is where we kind of jump into a lot of the space that me and Rachel are hitting at our gym at Fit Society in the Move and Correct world. Mechanically speaking, there's a couple things that can go wrong for you and things you should pay attention to. The first one we talk about is flexibility. So you having the passive range of motion to even get into certain movements mechanically and safely. And what we mean by flexibility, people, is like there's a difference between flexibility and mobility, and the words are kind of buzzwords right now that you toss around anyways. But flexibility would be me taking my finger, right, and I'm adding a load, and I'm not fighting it or doing it with just my finger. I'm pulling my finger back this far. This is my flexibility in my finger. So if you guys aren't watching the YouTube video, I just took my other hand and pulled my pinky back as far as I could. Mobility is me. I'm just now lifting my pinky finger, right? So I have less mobility in my pinky finger than I do flexibility. The first thing we check is flexibility. Can you even get to that range of motion? Mobility, then we check after flexibility, is can you hold yourself in that position, or can you pull yourself into that position and have strength there? So those are the two biggest one that you guys need to focus on as members is, can you even get to the appropriate position? If not, we need to start having conversations of one of two things. How do we get you to that position? Or if it's not something you can ever attain, how do we modify it so you can still get the correct stimulus, the correct intensity, to get a benefit from those movements? Because there's plenty of workarounds. And then the second thing is, if you can get into those positions, do you have strength there? And the easiest way to build strength there is, if you can get into that position, start doing things consistently, and then in a way then start adding an intensity. So as a member, I think I'm asking myself these questions right now. What movements do I struggle with even getting to? And is there a way for me to get to them? Do I need to ask somebody to help me to get to them? Or if I can't get to them because I have surgery or whatever, which you still might be able to get to them, but if I can't get to them, what can I do? Or what should I be asking my coach that I can do to still get the correct stimulus out of the workout? And then my second question is, okay, maybe I can get to these movements, but I don't necessarily feel strong in them. Well, then I'm probably not going to jump into necessarily like whatever's written on the board or some super heavy loads, right? I'm going to get comfortable, and I'm going to make sure that I really own those positions. Like we talked about, you have to earn the right. I'm going to make sure I own those positions and feel strong in those positions before I start adding an intensity. So I think as a member, I'm asking myself those two things. What movements can I get into? And then if I can't get into them, how do I get the correct stimulus out of it? And what movements that I can get into do I feel comfortable with adding loading?
They're good points in it. They you know, most people, I imagine, or most members, I imagine, because I watch it every day, come in, look at the workout, and we discussed on our last podcast, is it fitness or performance and why? And I'm going to build off of, I think what my point I want to bring up builds off of that podcast, and then what you're talking about, Corey, is the thing that's like going off in my brain right now is, you know, have an active hand in the creation of your work. Like, what are you doing and why are you doing it? Right. Like, ask yourself those questions. Are you the member? Going back to my original point, I see members come in and just like flippantly go through things. Like, just, we're here to work out today.
Yep.
And here's the deal. Yes. And you are here to work out, and you should be having fun and all those other things. But going back to like, our code is literally work, play, achieve. Achieve means get it done. That means there's some sort of reference point of results there. There's some point of victory there, or accomplishing, right? And so Corey's saying is like, hey, like ask yourself these questions, have some self-awareness, be an active participant and an advocate for yourself and your overall program, especially in this topic of injury. Because if you get hurt or you get injured, well, if you get injured, you can't do anything. If you get hurt, there's workarounds, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But as you're saying that, Corey, they're really good points. Really, you're saying, hey, be involved in your own program, be aware. And if you don't have these answers and these aren't even things you think about, seek out the resources to help you with it. So you stay injury free, which is number one. And then number two, here's the kicker. So that when you do exercise, when you do move, when you are performing those mechanics consistently, we call those sets and reps in our gym, or in time domains or task priority domains, whatever it is, that you actually get the result that you want out of it, right? So like that's a little, soapbox tangent on a really good point that you have. You go, well, how do I even get there as a member? Well, I got to kind of give a shit about, like, am I moving well? Yes or no? If I continue to do this, am I progressing? Or if I continue to exercise in this way with these movement patterns, with these mechanics consistently with intensity, am I hurting in the long way? That will lead to injury. And I think with that being said, Corey, we shift gears into from like, hey, number one, if you're going to work out, follow an MCI charter. Okay. And before I shift gears into the hurt injury scenario, what I want to tell people is this is I'll double down and say there's no more important variable with results in that hour of workout or 45 minutes or 30 minutes than intensity. We're not saying don't put yourself in challenging positions. We're not saying don't have unaccustomed stimulus. We're not saying that it shouldn't be hard to maintain those positions. As a matter of fact, we're saying if you want results, you need that, right? You can't just walk into the gym and because you walked into the gym and just moved like you would move at home with no unaccustomed stimulus, that you're going to get results. You just freaking won't. So as we shift gears from, hey, to stay injury free, follow an MCI charter, do it this way, build intensity if and only if you have mechanics consistently. If you follow that, I'll do it right this time, Corey. Your probability of injury will be decreased significantly. Okay.
Love it.
Which leads us to injury. Like, it happens, hurt happens. But I think it's important, as an exerciser, you're always, what you should be doing, going back to having a vested interest in like your program, like you should always be taking inventory. And if you are hurt or you are injured, asking yourself, okay, what does this mean to me? What do I do now? What's my cost value relationship here of doing something versus doing nothing? When should I do something versus nothing? Okay. And just to get it out there real quick with the hurt versus injury, and what that is injury is bad. Injury means I cannot do something anymore and I should not do something because if I continue to do this, I'm going to make it worse. Okay. That's injury. Whereas hurt may be discomfort, right? There's signs and symptoms with that. It's discomfort. It doesn't feel good. It bothers me, but if you continue to do it, it's not going to lead you to making it worse or injury, right? So on those two principles, Corey, what say you off the top of your head with a member when they feel something, right? I did squat, I feel something in my knee or my back or whatever else. Like, how do I know what's hurt and what's injured, and where do I go from there? And what should I do?
I'll break it down into some quick guidelines, and obviously we can't. Everybody's scenario is different.
We have like
right?
5 minutes, by the way.
Yes, everybody's scenario is different. So ask somebody when in doubt. But my quick guidelines would be: is the pain or discomfort less than a 4 out of 10? If it's a 4 out of 10 or less, probably not a whole ton happening there, right? Like maybe something is happening, but you're probably going to be okay to continue what you're doing. So pain 4 out of 10 or less. Does it hurt worse after you finish the exercise or the next day? If pain goes from, if you're doing the exercise and pain's at 4 out of 10, but then later that day or after you finish the exercise or the next day, pain goes to a 6 out of 10, bigger picture, something's happening here. Like we need to pump the brakes, right? But if discomfort and pain levels less than a 4 out of 10, it doesn't get worse the next day or after the movement's done, you're probably safe to spend some time there. And it's probably actually good for you to spend some time there. If it's not what we would call an acute injury, right? Which is like yesterday I walked out back and I rolled my ankle. Now I come in and I have discomfort 4 out of 10. Like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be running on your ankle, even though it's 4 out of 10, right? But if this is just like movements that generally bother you every day. So less than a 4 out of 10 there is the big key there. And the other one is it's not radiating, it's not moving elsewhere, right? So the pain's not traveling to a different area. It's not affecting other movements. You're probably safe to continue to do it. You probably want to get it checked out. You probably want to make sure that you're talking to somebody so you don't have to continue to deal with it, right? But you're safe to move. So those are my big guidelines for pain and how you would know if you're injured versus hurt. If it's above those things, probably should get it checked out and stop doing that. My other thing with it real quick is just people need to spend time in positions that they're not comfortable in, right? If you don't feel comfortable in a deadlift or it like kind of bothers you, right? It kind of bothers my back when I deadlift. You probably need to be deadlifting more. And you should talk to somebody about how to do it appropriately and dose it in. But avoiding movements is just going to make things worse. So please, if you're a member in the gym and you're avoiding movements, talk to a coach, because one of two things is going to happen. Number one, we're going to find a movement that we can substitute in for you that gives you the same stimulus. Or the second thing is we're just going to work with you to actually address the issues so you can do that movement again and not have pain or issues.
Mm-hmm. I think like the deadlift's a perfect example because, it's not an overly complex movement. Okay. It's one of the 7 patterns. It's a hinge dominant movement at the hips. And because people, but the movement itself, a lot of people will either hurt themselves or feel hurt with doing the deadlift, and more specifically in the lower back, right? So just walking through this real quick, and I know we're short on time, but what I would propose to somebody that maybe deadlifts on Monday and says, yeah, my back hurts on Wednesday. The first thing I would say is, do you remember last week when we did bicep curls on Monday and your biceps were sore on Wednesday? Well, that's because we worked your biceps, right? We did this thing called flexion of the elbow under tension and load. And when you do that, we break down the muscle tissue, create muscle fissures, we build it up, we're building biceps. Well, your lower back's the same, guys, right? Like, so looking at the deadlift is, and I'm not saying there's not a right and a wrong way to do it. And I'm not saying that injury doesn't happen when you deadlift, but what I'm saying is like, I would expect as a coach or as an exerciser, if I deadlift on Monday, that I'm potentially going to be really, really sore on Wednesday, especially, like you said, Corey, especially if I don't have a very good midline core or and that hinge pattern is not something I do over time. Well, guess what? I had unaccustomed stimulus. My body responded. It's barking at me, right? Yep. We just want to make sure when you're doing it, especially if it's like ridiculously sore, 4 out of 10, and then goes into a I might be injured thing, there's a problem there.
Yep.
And let me be clear, like you said, Corey, so perfectly, it's not the deadlift that's the problem.
Nope.
The solution, even though your doctor tells you, and I have no problem, doctor, come on, like your doctor just says, stop moving. No, absolutely not. Let's look at that movement. Let's look at that movement pattern. Let's break it down. Just like you squat to shit every day, if you drop something on the ground, you're going to bend over and pick it up, which is more of a hinge dominant exercise than a squat dominant exercise. We got to teach you how to do it properly.
Yep.
Right? So to Corey's point, like, and it seems like a paradox. I shouldn't do that because it will make it worse. No, like if deadlifting bothers you, right, you need to assess it, diagnose it, and you need to deadlift properly with scales and progressions. Okay,
Yep.
following the MCI charter, so you can learn how to hinge properly for everyday movement, let alone at the gym.
Yep. Yeah, and I think people get caught up in the like, well, I have to deadlift and I can't deadlift. And it's like there's so many things, right? We can throw a book at you. We could do Romanian deadlifts. We can do GHD hip extensions where your posterior chain. We could do single leg variables, unloaded variables, partial range of motion variables. There's so many things. So just the main point there is ask.
Yeah.
Right? Like this bothers me. If it's more than a 4 out of 10, whatever, ask, get help so that way you can do it. The last thing we want you to do is just avoid it because you think you can't get it fixed. And then you go throughout your life, and every time you drop something, you can't bend over and pick it up. You have to like do this weird squat down thing on one knee and like lean over. Just get it fixed.
Yeah. And so hey, worker outers inside of our space, you know, we can't fix what we don't know. And I'm speaking on behalf of the entire team and coaches. Listen, we put a lot of time, energy, and effort to be prepared to be able to meet you right where you are. Yep. Your body, your mind, meet you right where you are, and to prescribe accordingly. So, Corey, thank you for asking them to ask on behalf of the whole team, because we love, here's the thing, I love, Corey loves, we love as a coach in that environment for somebody to be like, you know what, I get it, but this hurts or this bothers. And we can begin to the process to make sure, or to either A, make it a this, not that, for that particular exercise, for that hour in that movement, or B, we can go down a yellow brick road and see if this little issue is actually more problematic than it is just an issue. And we have resources for that too, to go through and with Corey and Rachel and Moving Correct or any other coach in their specific specialty to, again, diagnose and make sure that you have confidence. You know, you have confidence that when you come in, you're doing things right, and that you know that you'll get your desired result. And so above and beyond confidence that you will decrease the risk for injury. So, you know, I think we just slammed at you guys in, what are we at? Like, I can't even see how long it's maybe 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. And it's Cliff Note type stuff, but it's important stuff. So the takeaways stripped down actionably, I guess we can take our go from 3, 2, 1, go, right?
Yeah,
we can do that. Actionably, you know, I would start with Corey's guidance and say, hey, if I do feel anything, like let's say you're somebody that's potentially hurt or injured right now, or there's restrictions. My question is do you know why?
Yeah.
And even if you do know what, do you have a plan? And what is that plan? So start there and let us help you with that. And then secondly is, as you address your workouts, understand and have a healthy appreciation for the MCI charter, and you'll be helping yourself on 2 levels. You're not going to get the number one, don't get hurt, don't get injured. Okay. But number 2 is, if you, like Corey said, if you follow it, your intensity is going to go through the roof. And we know when intensity goes through the roof, you get your desired fitness results. I'm having flashbacks because I've done no less than probably 1,000 hours, just 1,000 hours of coaching to coaches and or members on what we call foundational movements, which is just squatting, just pressing, and just deadlifting. And to this day, I can get any human being in any proposed physically good shape and just walk them through the proper mechanics of said exercise of just a squat, a press, or a deadlift, doing it properly. And by the time I'm done with them in 5 or 10 minutes with a 7-ounce PVC pipe, they're like, no mas.
Yeah, I'm sweating right now.
I'm good. Like, can I take a break? And you go, well, what is that? Well, that's adhering to a standard, consistently taking intensity through the roof. Imagine if you did that with load.
Right.
Like, to your point, as you build up and you're hitting those 90% plus lifts. I know that when I go, just yesterday, we were doing we did a heavy box squat or a box set of squats. and of a 5x5. And on that 4th and 5th set, before I'm getting into that bar, I'm thinking, I got to get my stance, grip, and position right on this because I'm tired.
Yep.
And my load's in the high 90s right now. And so I'm really thinking at the irony is I'm thinking mechanics when I got the biggest intensity on a bar that I could think of having, but that's where I go because I'm programmed to go, you know? Our hope is that members start thinking like this and being body aware and asking them questions. Am I set up right? Have I earned the right to enter that tunnel of movement? Do I know if I enter that tunnel of movement, I decrease the risk of something bad happening so that when you go hit it, so like when I did hit that set of squats, I can fucking get it on. I can give it everything I got for that set to take the intensity variable for the roof and get the end result. So we're balancing it. And that's just a kind of a real life applicable thing of how to balance it, be aware of it, and follow an MCI charter in doing it. And then I want to, I just talk a lot. I'm sorry, Corey, but I want to plug you. I want to plug you and Rachel for the work that in particular in this space inside of Fit Society. Guys, you gotta go check out the Fit Society Move and Correct program. I'm telling you, no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
You just do. I've watched the work that they have led in this space with each other. I mean, listen, I think half of my coaches or 3/4 of my coaches are doing your damn program with your maintenance stuff and everything else. We're programming it into some of our movement prep stuff, but the stuff you guys do on a one-on-one level for people that have anything going on in this space, my thing is they do a great job. You guys have done a great job. Go see Corey or Rachel. If you have any tweak, you're questioning your movements. Am I doing this right? With movement pattern stuff, they've just done a good job. So I just want to plug that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Come see us. We love it. We love helping people. It's for sure. I think that covers it, man.
The whole thing covered.
The whole thing's covered.
Yeah. All right. Well, CPO, we love you. We miss you. He's on his way to Montana. He's on a plane to Montana, but we'll figure it out for next week moving forward. So guys, have a good week. Today's Saturday the 19th. You'll be seeing this on Monday the 21st. Have a good week. Kick ass. We'll see you next week.